All of a sudden, the New York Rangers have been hit by the injury bug. We'll take a look at who is out of the lineup, plus Jon Merrill scratched. We'll discuss on today's pregame preview edition of Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, this is Brandon Duham, and this is Locked On Wild.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any of our new episodes throughout the course of the week. On today's pregame preview edition of Locked On Wild, we'll take a look at major lineup changes for both teams with Adam Fox, amongst others, out for the New York Rangers. We'll take a look at the Wild's new look top line power play, as well as the line combinations that we expect to see coming into tonight's game. My name is Seth Topol, your daily Minnesota Wild insider, and boy, a lot changed since we talked with Johnny Lazarus of the Blue Crew podcast. Major injury issues for the New York Rangers. And so all of a sudden, it's a Rangers team that is dealing with similar levels of injury to the Minnesota Wild. Adam Fox out. He has, in fact, been put on long-term injured reserve. So no Adam Fox for the New York Rangers, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. They will also be missing Barclay Goodrow, expecting the birth of his child, so will not play in this one either. And Filip Gustavsson also out of the lineup for the New York Rangers. So a Rangers team that is coming in playing some incredibly good hockey, and some players that are going to be very much felt their presence not in the lineup for this New York Rangers team. Also, Jonathan Quick getting the start, so no Igor Shesterkin in this game, which again is a bit of a break for the Minnesota Wild, but I don't think we should dismiss Jonathan Quick, as Johnny talked about this in yesterday's episode as well. Jonathan Quick has been playing extremely well so far this season. He has allowed less than a goal per game. He has a save percentage of .982. He's allowed one goal in 145 minutes and 52 seconds on ice. So it's not a cakewalk for the Wilds, the fact that Igor Shesterkin is not in the net, because Jonathan Quick has been just fine for them. And it's still a power play that features a ton of different weapons. Looking at some of the names, Chris Kreider, Miko Zibanejad, you've got Alexei Lafreniere, who Johnny has talked about playing incredibly well to start the season. A lot of names, including a familiar one in Johnny Brodzinski, who will be getting some playing time here today with all of those injuries that the Rangers are dealing with. So a Rangers team that's banged up, but so are the Minnesota Wild. And it's a Minnesota Wild team that is going to look a little different coming into this game, because yes, your ears do not deceive you. Jon Merrill has been scratched and will not play in tonight's game. So that is a big, I think, something that a lot of people have been waiting for, a chance to see Damon Hunt get into the lineup in place of Jon Merrill. We'll see how that works out. It'll be Filip Gustavsson getting the start in net for the Minnesota Wild, and a new look power play for Minnesota in this game as well. A 5-forward power play group, a physical practice, a strenuous practice yesterday by all accounts, leading to some very interesting changes for the Minnesota Wild in this one. We'll see the likes of Marco Rossi on that top unit in place of Matt Zuccarello, amongst others. So a lot to, I think, be excited about in this game, even though the Rangers are still a very tough opponent. And looking at how the rest of that number one power play will look, we'll see, of course, Kirill Kaprizov. You'll see a little bit of Matt Boldy as well. Joel Eriksson, and then Marcus Johansson now will be the guy kind of running the top of the power play for the Minnesota Wild. So Johansson, Kaprizov, Boldy, Rossi, Eriksson, and the Wild just trying to give that disastrous power play a boost here in this one today. But again, you can make those changes, and you can make the changes to the lineup with Matt Boldy, Kirill Kaprizov, and Marco Rossi as your top line. But if the effort isn't good, then that is going to lead to similar problems to what we've seen over these last 10 games. And then it's going to just extend into it. So new lineup is going to feature Kaprizov, Boldy, and Rossi on the top line. Your second line is Hartman, Zuccarello, and Johansson. Third line right now, Pat Maroon, Joel Eriksson, and Marcus Foligno. So trying to Frankenstein the grief line back together. And then your fourth line, of course, Vinny Lettieri, Brandon Duhaime, and Connor Dewar. So new looks, but again, it's got to come down to the effort as well if the Wild want to kickstart their season and get out of this early season funk that has left everybody so frustrated and just kind of off the wagon on this team. If it leads to another slow start, if the Wilds get out of the gates without being able to, stay in the action, then we're going to see similar results to what we've seen over the first part of the season. But all in all, it's going to be an intriguing one to watch here tonight, just to see how these combinations look. Kaprizov, Boldy, Rossi looked good down the stretch, and it seemed like the team responded late when the lines were tossed in the old blender. But again, slow start dooms a team every time they come up short in a game. So that's a little bit of kind of the lowdown of what we expect to see in this game tonight. We'll take a look at some of the keys to the game, as well as how the odds stack up for the Minnesota Wild here this evening against the New York Rangers. All that and more as we continue today's pregame preview edition of Locked On Wild. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search, according to U.S. Indeed data. And in the 60 seconds we've been talking about Indeed, 16 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon. That's Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is also brought to you by Parkview Advance. As a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind. But that doesn't mean you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Parkview Advance has helped businesses secure working capital from $5,000 to $1.5 million. Parkview Advance can approve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. We invite the many entrepreneurs that are Locked On NHL fans to learn more by calling us at 203-675-0071 or go to parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. Parkview Advance, helping businesses with their working capital. Go to parkviewadvance.com. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to join us after the game and post-game interviews for tonight's Locked On Wild postcast, as we'll break down all the action in this game tonight. And if we look at the FanDuel odds, Minnesota Wild actually in the negative in the money line. They're minus 120 on the money line. Rangers at plus 100. And so I think that shows you that this Rangers team that's been off to such a good start is going to be missing these key pieces. I mean, they're 8-2 in the first place in the Metropolitan Division. And if you look at the team stats through the early part of the season so far, the Rangers check in very favorably in key areas. Now, goals per game, they are a little lower down the list with an even 3 goals per game through 10 games. But you look at their power play percentage, they are third at 32.4%. You look at their penalty kill, and the Rangers check in at 81.8% on the season. So they're getting some good production in both special teams units. Minnesota Wild, by comparison right now, dead last in penalty kill at 63.6%, and their power play at 15.8% is in the bottom half of the NHL. Yet, sitting at 3.5 goals per game, that currently has the Wild 7th in the NHL. So for the Minnesota Wild, some keys to coming away with a win here tonight. Number 1 is don't tempt this Rangers power play unit. I know the Rangers are missing Adam Fox. Johnny Lazarus talked at length about what he brings to this power play. So it's going to be a power play that's not going to be able to, I think, have the same level of success without him than they did with him. But it's a Wild penalty kill right now that is just abysmally bad. And so if you're not going to make major changes or personnel changes to the penalty kill, then you have to limit the opportunities in which it has a chance to be showcased and exposed. So Minnesota Wild need to be smart. They need to avoid the penalties that lead to easy power play opportunities for their opponents, whether it be hooking, slashing, you name it. Play smart, play 5-on-5. The Wild, one of the better 5-on-5 teams so far this season, but there just is zero ability to play at 5-on-5. Number 2 is to ride the new look lines. Get some energy from those new look combinations. Let's see if Kaprizov, Boldy, and Rossi can build off of a strong debut against the Devils in the latter stages of that game. See if they have a takeover performance here against the New York Rangers and put the team on their back. And moreover, get Kirill Kaprizov going to start the season. We'll see if that provides energy. That second unit with Zuccarello and Hartman and Johansson, I'm intrigued to see how that looks because it's pretty similar to what we had, just not necessarily the same level of stick handling ability that Kirill Kaprizov brings to that line. But Johansson was playing well to start the season. So I'm intrigued to see there. I'm intrigued to see what happens with that third line. See if they can be a physical presence that can just be the bowling ball that just knocks people down and starts to wear down. If the Wild want to be a physical team, they have to start playing like one. So we'll see if those line combinations can lead to some better results. Also going to be excited to see what Damon Hunt brings to the table in his first taste of NHL action. I'm not counting what he did in the 11-7 games because he barely played. First test of real, actual, legitimate NHL hockey for Damon Hunt here tonight. So I'm very excited to see how he responds. And the third key in this one tonight, we keep asking for it, so I'm going to continue to ask for it until we get it. How about a signature Filip Gustavsson performance? Take this game into your own hands. Don't rely upon what is in front of you. The defense still a work in progress. Just take this game into control and have a similar performance to what we saw against Florida. Just take over the game and refuse to lose. So if the Wilds can do those things, in particular, number one, but mostly as well, number two, then they should be able to keep this close against the New York Rangers. Will they win? Time remains to be seen, but it's still a very good Rangers team, even without those key guys in the lineup. So it should be a fun one at the X tonight. Again, we'll have you covered all throughout the game. So make sure that you stick to Locked On Wild so you don't miss out on any coverage throughout this game or the rest of the season. You can find new episodes plus pre-games and postcasts as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.